All right, here's the booking. That you want the booking number?
Neither do
Yes.
All right, it's 2219123.
Okay.
If you want,
I think that might be your mic. I think it have. Oh.
Okay, they have, you ready, Your Honor?
yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Okay, so they have 10 cycles in Georgia beginning in 2018. A felony conviction for fleeing and attempting to elude police officer. In 2018, they received first offender. It doesn't have a seal date. A probation violation in 2019.
I'll let him in, Sarge. It's just the
Um,
PD in the,
Another one in 2020.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, 2022, there's an FTA.
Uh-huh.
Morning.
And nothing further to report, Your Honor.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Lang.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Sparrow is 24 years old. He's lived his entire life in Georgia. He lives at the Continental Colony Parkway address. He has 6 children, all of whom live with him. The oldest is 12. He made it to the 12th grade, but did not complete or graduate or complete his GED. He is hoping to start that process. I believe Your Honor might have even made that a condition of bond on one of his other cases. I don't recall correctly. He is HVAC certified, getting certified 3 to 4 years ago through the Job Corps. He works construction with the grandfather of his children. That individual owns a construction company who Mr. Sparrow works with while he's out. Looking at the information presented, the nature of his history, 7 years in the age of majority, 10 total arrests, starting in 2018. The current bond is $25,000 good. I'd be asking the court to consider $15,000. So the that would change because count 3 got dismissed. That was $5,000. So the current bond is $20,000. So I'd ask the court to lower it to $5,000 on each.
All right,
Yes, Your Honor. This defendant does have a bond, as is his right. The bond is fair and reasonable. I think pretrial mentioned he does have an extensive criminal history as well as having an open case that he's currently dealing with. This defendant does pose as a significant likelihood to re-offend. As such, we would ask this court not to lower the bond.
all right. So we got no further contact with Derek Thomas or Kejuan, Kejuan Wiggins. Stay away from 3871 Red Wine Road. No drugs unless prescribed, no alcohol, no weapons. Ankle monitor paid for by the county with a 24-hour curfew. Court, lawyer, medical, employment, basic life necessities. As long as he supplies the name of his employer, proof of employment schedule, the exact location he's going to be working. You say he's going to be working on his GED?
That was something he had started. I've recommended to him that he start it back up, but
Okay, and if he's going to continue working on his GED, Ms. Hollenbeck. And that ankle monitor will be paid for by the county. If there's any hold, he'll have 48 hours to place that on his ankle. So I'll change it to, so count 3 is dismissed for failure to prove. And then you got count 1 and count 2, 5,000 apiece, for $10,000 good bond.
thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
That's my only business with you, may I be excused?
Yes, sir. Is this yours? 'Cause I wrote all over it, but you can still have it.
I have an extra copy. if you
Oh,
want to
okay.
keep that for your notes.
All right, thanks.
See you later.
So which one is the female? 3? Oh, okay.
The female defendant,
Uh-huh.
that's position 4.
Oh.
Yes, Permis Hill.
Uh-huh.
Probably butchering how that's pronounced.
So they didn't bring her over, Sarge?
Yeah, she's not here yet. They haven't arrived yet.
Oh, she's not, the females haven't arrived yet.
Yeah, they said the transport hasn't come, so I don't know if they haven't come yet.
All right, Mr. Cazzilli, did you want to run and tell her and then come back?
Yes, if
Okay.
I'm Judge there, thank you.
Okay, because yours would be the only three.
Good morning, Your Honor, if I may.
Morning.
Mike Wilson, here for the state, Your Honor.
On the,
On that position 4.
okay,
So I'm waiting on my detective to get here. He's not here as well. I heard what the announcements were just a minute ago with the court, so.
okay. All right. So Mr. Cazzoli's going to run next door and tell her that we'll be here, that she's going to be over here. She's got the entire calendar and then. Which case are you here on?
Position 2.
2? And what about you? Oh, okay. So who's here on, is he on 1 also?
He's just on 2. I would ask for a reset on position 1.
All right, we'll wait for Mr. Cazzoli to get back.
Oh, okay, no problem. He's covering for Ms. Pinto.
Yeah, he's covering all of them.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Your Honor. Lori Anderson with Legal Aid.
Bring it up here, Lori. That's the new thing for me.
Did you sit at the table?
The signature.
Right.
I'll let you handle it.
This was basically.
You don't want any parts of the table?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay.
Then I need to send,
Yes, right there. I think I did everything else. The rest is for DPH.
I don't need, okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you so much.
Sorry you had to come on, walk all the way over here.
No problem at all.
Was that like 3 blocks, right?
Thank you.
You folks are family for,
I think they're here on position 4, Your Honor.
oh, okay. Which one now? Yeah, so there was, I had made notes, so there's no probable cause on criminal damage to property. But, and then 5,000 for each, so burglary in the first degree, theft by taking felony. Or here you go, there's. Mark on it. Yeah. So as soon as he get back, we'll do those 3, and as soon as they get the female here, we'll do number 4.
1883.
Yeah. So. Excuse me. And Ms. Hollaback, if you'll do the PC order on that other case too.
So we're gonna do a probable,
Yeah, so
sorry.
everything except for the criminal damage to property because a value wasn't established. Because before, so we had the court reporter who said, well, anyway. Ms. Patton asked a question a certain way, we kind of all missed it, said she knew.
Me,
Mhm.
what did I?
Well, usually it's the cop that says it's in Fulton County. But the way you asked it, he just said, yeah, and I was waiting to hear, and I'm like, mark in.
Oh.
Yeah, that was the
Do you
case.
remember
Yeah,
I said I bet my last dollar that I did?
yeah, and I'm glad I didn't bet mine.
We should have taken up that bet because I knew I had done it. Your Honor, you mind if I speak to my officers briefly?
Sure, go ahead.
Morning, Judge. Come in, make yourself.
That's the rest of them, embryo. As you can tell, right? All right, you ready? So you folks, Ms. Patton, do you want to do, which ones do you want to do first? Do you want to just do 2 and 3 first?
2 probably will be faster.
Okay. So you want to bring out,
Yeah, we definitely need to do 2.
yeah, Yassine Ali.
Ali.
Is it not down?
It's not.
This was the podium is on. Yeah, that
Okay. This one. Is that the defendant?
was, yes.
Oh, hold on, let me see if I can invite it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it is. Well,
For the most part.
yeah.
Oh, it wasn't invited.
Mr. Gould's here. Yes.
Oh, I see. I see. All right.
Mr. Holly. My name's Robert Cazzola. I'm an attorney with the Fulton County Public Defender's Office. Representing you today, your main attorneys could be Miss Pinto. Have you met her before? Okay, all right, yeah, so I'm gonna be covering for her today because she is in another courtroom right now. But again, we're in the same office, so I have all the information. I wasn't there at the conversation.
Oh, Lordy, I guess. Let's see. Let me get 1A.
What is your father? I have the information.
The guy just had a name that.
I had a whole total blank. Find it. Oh, come on. Keep inviting it, but it shows that it's.
There's already.
Maybe, let's see. Oh, I know which one. Oh, yeah, they're labeled wrong. Hold on.
For 75 days. days. So if you don't have another hearing coming soon, this might be a good opportunity to ask. What's the validity?
Yeah, can you, it's offline. Yeah.
This is actually.
Because on the Zoom controller, it says it's offline.
Good.
All right, hold on. Let's-
Sign came up now.
Now, okay, now I just took it out, right?
Okay, so it's maybe now.
Because you have to.
No.
Yeah, just that. 10,000.
Zoom.
See, it's not in here. It's not in. Can you call the,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'll probably ask for a little more than that. I'm just not comfortable being able to get it. More comfortable. I'm not comfortable.
well, what's the ID? Oh, no, let me put this ID in here, see if it works. No, there it goes. Got it. All right, now, got it. I just had to join it. All right, so we got, first one we got is Yassine Ali. Come on up. All right, so this is position, well, we'll address position 1 and 2. So position 1 is 23 CP 217318, Yassine Ali, robbery by sudden snatching, criminal trespass, 75 days without indictment. Go ahead, Ms. Patton on this one.
Your Honor, the state will be requesting a one-time reset just to, I believe the officer was properly subpoenaed. I do not want to misrepresent to the court. That is just my belief, however. So I would want more time to see if I could find him, see what's going on.
Mr. Cozzoli,
I'm sorry, this is for which position?
just position 1. We have the officer here on position 2, but not position 1.
Understood, Your Honor. We would object to such a reset. If there was a proper subpoena, Your Honor, then we would have asked the officer to come prepared. And if there was an improper subpoena, then we would have asked the state to come prepared. So either way, we're asking for a dismissal.
And what's that officer's name?
D. Bell, Bell.
APD?
MARTA, I believe it's a female officer who was at MARTA. I was able to talk to Officer White, who actually is on stand now. He has contact information for her, so I think it'll be easier to track her down now.
Oh, okay. How long what's the next date? We'll give one reset only for that officer to appear. June 27th, 1 PM. I'm sure Mr. Cozzoli didn't know from his Pinto, but I guess-
We'll say it's good for now, Your Honor.
right, okay. All right, so we will go forward because we do have the officer here on position 2 for Yassine Ali, 23 CP 217435, 75 days without indictment, robbery by sudden snatching. Officer, if you raise your right hand, you swear a firm testimony you're about to give is the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, if you state your name, spell it for the court reporter.
Officer Elon Tavius White.
You hear it, Miss Gandy?
Yes, I can hear him. Can I get him to spell it for me, please?
Can you spell your first name for him?
First name ELONTAVIUS. Last name White, WHIT.
All right, go ahead, Miss Patton.
Hi, Officer White.
Hello.
How are you today?
Doing all right?
All righty. Where are you currently employed?
I'm employed with the Marta Police Department,
And how long have you been employed there?
8 years.
Were you employed there on March 30th, 2023?
I was.
Were you employed there around the beginning of April of 2023?
Yes.
And how did you become aware of Mr. Ali, the defendant in this case?
through CCTV footage. I was flagged down at the Martyr Dunwoody station in reference to a snatch theft that occurred on the train by the victims.
So who flagged you down specifically?
Well, they came to the precinct, so that's what I mean by flagged down. They came to the precinct and
Okay.
they wanted a report for a snatch theft. Mrs. Claire and her father.
Okay, and the Claire you're referring to, what's her last name? You may not be able to pronounce it, but if you could just spell it, please.
Kajari is Kajari.
Okay, so Miss Kajari and her father came to the precinct and they told you what?
Yeah, so on that day, they told me that March the 30th, 2023, that they was boarding the train at the airport station. At that time, Miss Claire, she was in her phone. When the train pulled up to the West End station, she said she had observed 3 Black African-American males aboard the train. They just was around in her area, her vicinity. As the doors opened and the train was about to ready to leave and depart West End station, she advised that Mr. Ali was, he reached over the banister and grabbed her phone and took off running. And,
Okay. So I'm gonna stop you right there. Forgive me for interrupting you. You said at the West End stop?
Yes, when the train, so they boarded the airport.
Okay.
And they was traveling to the West End, but they was going to Brookhaven. Once the train approached West End station, the doors open. That's when you see all the 3 individuals, and you see Mr. Ali reach over the banister, grab the phone, and run out the train into the station.
Okay, so when you say that's when you see them, that's what you observed on the CCT footage?
Correct, on CCTV. Yeah.
Okay. The West End station where this occurred, do you have an address for there?
I do.
And if you would just tell the court what you're looking through right now.
Yes, this is my police report,
Okay, go ahead.
and trying to get the address for the West End. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Do you know if the West End stop is in Fulton County?
It is.
Okay. Do you know if it's in Atlanta?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Just take a second and see if you can find an address for it.
You can refresh it directly like Mother Warner, if you might. You have it. You can refresh it.
I have a copy of the warrant only on digital. I'm happy to walk over my laptop if that would be okay.
I have the address.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
The address will be 680 Lee Street, Atlanta, Georgia, 30310.
And again, that's in Fulton County.
That's correct.
Okay. So you spoke to Miss Kajari, forgive me for mispronouncing her last name if I am, and she told you what had been stolen.
Yeah, she said her iPhone 11 was taken out of her hand while she was watching the show.
Okay. Did she tell you what show she was watching?
She didn't. She just said she was watching the show. Her head was down at that time. Yeah.
Did she say she saw who took her phone?
She said she couldn't recall what he had on, but she said a Black African-American male, yeah.
Did she tell you what she did after they took her phone?
Yeah, she tried to get up and give chase, but then her dad stopped her.
Okay, so her dad was present while this happened as well?
Yes, that's correct.
Did he see what happened?
Yes, and he gave an account of what happened as well. He advised that they were sitting on the train and the 3 males were around them in the vicinity. Once the train pulled up, you see one of the males take the phone and run out.
Okay, so you mentioned that on the footage, you can see an individual, the defendant, reach over something. Okay, so tell me what you mean by reaching over something. Was there a rail or a gore? What was there?
Yeah, so how our trains are constructed, in the middle of the train console where the doors are located, it's like a little pole and a banister area. So it's a seat and it's like a little pole and a banister where it separates the door from the seat. And that's where he reached over to grab the phone.
Okay, so you, in terms of sequence of events, Ms. Kajari and her father come to the precinct to report the defendant stealing her phone. And at that point, do you watch the footage?
Yes, at that point, I was able to pinpoint the time, the location, and check CCTV. At that time, we was able to see Miss Claire, her father, and all the 30B males, well, the Black males on camera, and piece everything together.
Okay, so who gave you the time and the date of when this occurred?
Well, she gave us approximate time, and once we go back to CCTV, we're able to, play the footage and see exactly when the incident occurred.
Did she tell you what train she was on? I don't know if MARTA has different trains that run at different times. Was she able to indicate to you what train she was on, or it was just the time?
She advised the time, and from the time we was able to get the footage from the train and the train number from the footage, Christian.
Did you recognize the victim in the footage?
Yes. She
Okay.
gave an account of what she was wearing, and it was consistent to what she was wearing on footage.
Okay. On the video footage, you specifically saw the defendant take the phone from Ms. Kajari.
Yes.
Did she ever indicate to you that she had given permission for the defendant to take the phone?
Yes, she advised she didn't give any permission. She was just looking down, and he snatched it and ran out. So she was unaware that her phone was being taken.
Did she ever indicate to you that she knew the defendant?
No, she did not know. She didn't indicate that.
Did she ever indicate to you that she knew one of the other males in the group?
No, they were from out of town, to be exact. So they was new to the city.
Okay. Did she ever indicate to you at any point in time that she had given anyone other than her person permission to have her phone?
No.
So when you saw the footage of the incident, describe the defendant or the individual that you saw taking the phone.
Yeah, so you see Mr. Yassine, he had dreads, he had on like a jacket. I think he had some type of stars or something on it. You see him reach over the banister and grab the phone and run out. So
was the video in color? Was it in black and white?
yes, it's a color video.
Okay. You were specifically able to see the face of the person who snatched the phone?
That's correct.
Are they in this courtroom today? You can stand up if you need to.
Feel free to stand.
Yes.
Please describe where they are in relation to me, if they're on my left or on my right, and an article of clothing.
Yes. They're going to be on your right. If you're facing me, yeah, on your right.
Article of clothing?
Yes, have on a blue and white, a blue jumper with a white t-shirt underneath, and has dreads, 30B male, black male, Christian.
Okay. Please let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Yassine Ali.
All right, record will so reflect.
Are you post-certified?
I am.
Were you post-certified at the time of that incident?
I was.
So how did you identify the person in the video as the defendant?
Yeah, so I was able to talk to another officer because he was involved in a string of snatch thefts. That wasn't the first snatch theft. So I called the officer to verify that this was the subject. They was able to check CCTV, the date of the incident, and they was able to take Mr. Yassine into custody on that date. And then when I called Officer Alexander, he verified that it was the same subject. We was able to get pictures from my lieutenant, and that's how I was able to verify that he was the same defendant from the situation.
Okay, so you said there was a string of robbery by snatch, and then you said he. By he, who do you mean he?
Mr. Yassine Ali.
Okay. So you were able to speak to, I believe you said Officer Alexander, and he showed you footage, or he is the one who saw the footage?
Yes, I FaceTimed him.
Okay.
And I showed him the CCTV camera footage that I was looking at the time. And then he advised that there was a positive ID because he had Mr. Yassine on the 30th. They arrested him. And he said, yes, there was a positive ID.
Did you ever see his mugshot or anything?
I did.
Okay. And that's the same person from the
That is.
CCTV footage, excuse me?
Yes,
Okay. And that's the same person who's in the court today,
it is.
who you identified on my right in the blue and
Yes.
white undershirt? Okay. Did Ms. Kajari ever tell you that the defendant said anything to her or yelled or?
No,
Did she ever indicate that he used any sort of violence towards her?
no. She just advised that her head was down and he snatched the phone and they ran off the train.
Did she get injured at all?
No, she was not injured.
And you stated that she ran after him, but her father stopped her.
That's correct.
Did her father ever give you any identifying information about who had done this?
He just advised it was slim, black males, looked like they was teenagers. That's about it.
Is there anything else you learned during your investigation that we've not covered here today?
No, ma'am. Other than the fact that he was with other males that was that I took out warrants on, and he was involved in a string of snatch thefts. So other than that, no.
Did the other males have any identifying features?
They was just all black males that had on dark clothing, and also Mr. Yassine, I believe he had a gun on him as well once he was arrested from a previous arrest for snatch theft on the same date. So that was some information that I learned.
Okay. Did any of the other males who were there, you said it was 3 males, so 3 males including Mr. Ali, or 3 plus him? So how many altogether?
4 altogether, including Mr. Ali, Mr. Yassine.
Was Mr. Ali the only one with dreads?
No. He was the only one with those long dreads that I was able to identify right now.
Okay.
The other one had like little twists.
So would you say there was a significant difference between the 2 hairstyles?
Yes.
So how long would you say the other, you said little twists, how long would you say those were?
Probably like 3 inches or yeah.
Okay. And were Mr. Ali and the other person with twists, were they the same complexion? Were they different complexion?
Yeah, they were the same, kind of the same complexion.
Okay. But you were able to separate it because of the length of the dreads?
Yes, the length of the dreads, and Mr. Ali, you see him in the CCTV footage he have on his hoodie at first. He takes it off. So yeah, and the CCTV footage captured his face clearly on camera.
Okay. No further questions at this time.
All right, Cross?
Good morning, officer.
Good morning.
Officer, you mentioned that you became involved in this case when the alleged victim in the case reported it.
Yeah, she came to the precinct wanting to report.
Okay, were you the first person to speak with her?
Yes.
Okay, and about
Well,
what?
no. Not on that date, correct? Yes, I was the first person, but I wasn't the first person to speak with her as an officer. When the incident happened, she spoke with somebody else that day.
Okay, and what?
That was on the March the 30th, but I was the first person on April the 1st when she came to the precinct. Yes.
Okay, and what? Which officer did she speak with on the 30th?
I think Andrew Chong.
Can you spell it for the court?
ANDREWCHON.
HON. Okay. And she spoke with him the previous day, the day of the incident.
Yeah, the day of the incident.
And was he an officer at the precinct as well? She had come into the precinct before, or did she speak?
I
with
can't
him somewhere
recall
else?
the incidents of what she spoke to him about, but she spoke to him on that day. She came to me on the day of April the 1st and gave me her account of what happened.
Okay. And that was at the Dunwoody precinct?
Yes.
All right. You said April 1st. Do you remember roughly the time that you began?
Yes, around about 5:03 p.m.
And then just a little bit of clarification, were there 3 total males or 4 total males that were alleged to have been part of this incident?
On CCTV, you see 4.
And what about in the statements from Ms. Kajari?
They advised they saw 3, but on camera, it was 4.
And the father of Ms. Kajari, did he say 3 or 4?
Advised 3.
And according to Ms. Kajari's statement to you, she said that 1 male took her phone.
Yes, he snatched the phone and ran off the train.
Okay, and that he was wearing dark clothing.
Yes.
Any other description of other than their race, sex, and clothing? Any other descriptions that were provided?
Yes, she advised 1 was wearing black clothes and had his underwear sticking out, and was a somewhat colorful description. She gave the colors and said they were green, pink, and yellow, and he had a flowery design on it.
This was his clothing? I'm sorry, can you repeat what that's describing?
Yes, she advised it was 3 black males that walked over to the train door, and they were wearing black clothing. And then she just gave a description of, she said it smelled like weed, and she gave a description of 1 wearing underwear sticking out with a colorful pattern. And she was describing one of the males at the time.
I'm sorry, what had a colorful pattern?
She was the clothing of one of the males.
Okay.
In the group.
And was this Mr. Ali or a different individual?
She didn't give a name of, she just gave me a description for one of the males who was wearing that. She didn't say who.
And then how about Ms. Kajari's father?
Yes, he advised that they were slim and looked like to be teenagers.
Did he describe their clothing or their hair or their size besides slim? Anything else?
No.
And now let's go back to CCTV. You said that did you personally
Yes.
view that footage?
I did.
Okay. And you mentioned that there was a timestamp. What was that timestamp?
Yes, it was around 15:45, which is 3:45. We was able to go back and look on CCTV.
And that's on the 30th?
Correction, that's, on the 30th. We was able to go and look at CCTV when the incident started at the airport, following Miss Claire all the way to the West End station.
Okay. And so so then you spoke with a different officer who already had Mr. Ali in custody?
Yes, they had arrested Mr. Ali and one of the other males at that time, Mr. Nathaniel, but they released Mr. Nathaniel and Mr. Ali was still in custody.
Okay. And what clothes was he wearing at that point?
On the day of the incident?
Oh, in custody, I suppose.
I can't tell you the clothes he was wearing in custody.
Did you see him in custody?
Yes.
Okay, and you don't recall what he was wearing?
I thought you was my mistake. I thought you was meaning at the jail, the mug shop, but he had on the same clothing the day of the incident. Yeah.
Okay, and then what clothing was that?
The jacket and all that stuff that he had on, the black dark pants, he had on that in the mug shop. I mean, in the picture.
You said that CCTV was in color?
Yes.
There was no audio?
It was audio on CCTV.
Audio as well? Did you hear anything that from the incident?
I mean, just train noise.
Okay. And then kind of walk me through again how you and the officer that was holding Mr. Ali confirmed that they were the same person.
Yes. So
yeah, go ahead.
I FaceTime him when I had the footage up, And I advised, is this Mr. Ali? He said, yeah, we just arrested the subject a few days ago. He's in custody. And I was able to look, because my lieutenant sent me footage and pictures of all the subjects. I was able to look at previous incidents where he did a sudden snatch, and I was able to piece them together at the time of that incident from the same footage of the other incidents.
Okay. And so, I'm sorry, who was the officer that you were speaking with that was holding Mr. Ali?
Mr. Alexander.
It's Mr. Alexander?
Officer Alexander.
Officer,
He's a sir,
okay.
yeah, Mr.
When you use the right honorific here, okay. And so the way Officer Alexander was able to confirm that this was the same person was through FaceTime filming CCTV?
No, we wasn't filming it. I was able to call him on FaceTime and show him the footage to say, hey, is this the same subject? And he said, yes.
Exactly. So when you did that, it was through FaceTime,
Yes.
looking at footage
Right.
that was being shown on a TV, I presume?
Our CCTV footage on the monitor on the camera in the precinct, yes.
Okay. Your Honor, if I may take a moment.
Sure.
Have you had victim contact since that initial report?
I haven't, but I believe they contacted her. Somebody from our department contacted her because her phone was located. So I haven't.
Where was that phone located?
It was in property and evidence because on the date of the incident, they was able to retrieve it. So it was in property and evidence for evidence.
And just to confirm, when you say retrieve it from where?
When they arrested Mr. Yassim, they retrieved phones off them at that time.
Okay, and so where was it found on Mr. Ali's person?
I can't tell you that. I just know that the other officers who arrested him, it's in their reports and they can tell you where they found the phones at. I just know that they was able to retrieve the phones and place it in evidence.
Okay, and on CCTV, you said that the person who actually physically took the phone, you could see their face clearly?
Yes, you can see his description, them walking through the trains. You see his face, then you see him walk over to the exit door. He's the first one, and he grabbed the phone and ran off the train.
And that person that you could see clearly was Mr. Ali?
That's correct.
Was the alleged victim in this case physically holding the phone when it was taken out of her possession?
Yes, she was.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Anything else on direct?
Yes, just one question. Officer White, you just told defense counsel that there were 4 people involved on the CCTV footage. How do you know that 4 people were involved?
Yes, because we had still images of the incident and then viewing CCTV. You know, Miss Claire advised that she didn't know the exact number, so I told her give her what she think, and she told me 3. But on footage, you can see I got pictures.
Were those uploaded into evidence and submitted for
Yes,
evidence?
everything was in evidence.com.
Footage as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right, nothing further.
Anything else?
Nothing from the defense, Your Honor. We do. Yep, that's it.
All right. Thank you. Stay safe. Get some rest. All
Thank you.
right. Go ahead with argument.
Your Honor, we're going to submit on the evidence, but we do ask that to have a bond hearing after this.
Okay. All right. What, do you want a bond hearing on position 1 also?
If possible, yes, Your
All right.
Honor. Your Honor, just to clarify, did you make a ruling on?
Yeah, you stipulated, so I'll find probable cause, at least on number 2. Number 1, we're resetting to June 27th.
Understood, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Ms. Hardy.
The defendant has 4 arrest cycles in Georgia beginning in 2017, felony conviction in 2021 for armed robbery. They received first offender treatment, no seal date given, and that's all the history I have to report.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Cazoli.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Ali is 18 years old. He has a good address at 4276 North Giles Road, Douglasville, Georgia, 30134. He's lived there for the past 3 years with his mother and his brother. He is a lifetime resident of Georgia. He has a child coming soon. Most of his family, including his parents, grandmothers, aunts, and uncles, live in Georgia as well. Your Honor, he is pursuing his GED. At the time of his incarceration, he had 1 month left of the program he was using for that. Your Honor, before his incarceration, he was working at both Goodwill and McDonald's. He'd been working at Goodwill for the last 11 months. They said that they are holding the job for him, Your Honor, so he will be able to work upon release. Your Honor, we are asking for, you said we can be heard on both.
Sure, we can just go ahead and
Thank you, Your Honor. On position 1, we're asking for a $12,000 bond, $10,000 on the robbery by sudden snatching, $2,000 on the criminal trespass. He has been incarcerated for, I believe, 75 days on that charge. And then on position 2, we're asking for a $10,000 bond for a total of 22 across both.
Ms. Patton.
Your Honor, I was just trying to check if he had received a bond on the second one. I know he's in a no bond status on the first.
Yeah, there's no bond. Sorry. I know I usually say that. No bond on both.
Okay. And Mr. Cazoli, just to clarify, it would be 22 overall?
Right.
No objection from the state. We would just ask that Mr. Ali be required to not ride any MARTA platforms and no contact. I don't know that his co-defendants were listed in the warrant, but I believe they are in the police report.
All right, let's see. Well, let's address position 1 right now. Let me see.
And Your Honor, I'm sorry, my client does want some clarity, and my apologies for not being prepared on this. He says that he does have a bond specifically on criminal trespass.
He doesn't. It says no bond for both.
Okay, then no worries, Your Honor.
Yeah, so I don't know if somebody else did it and then they, sometimes if the municipal court judge will set it, they'll still, some people will change it. So on position 1, 23 CP 217318, there's robbery by sudden snatching, criminal trespass. So 10,000 on the robbery by snatching, 2,000 on the criminal trespass. However, no drugs unless prescribed, no alcohol, no weapons, no further contact with Catherine Hayes, Hayes. Stay away from all MARTA property. That includes bus stops, sir. If you're at a bus stop and you're walking down the street, you cannot stop at that bus stop and sit down and tie your shoe. You have to walk beyond that and sit down on the side of the curb, 200 yards away from any MARTA property, and tie your shoe. Also, you can have an ankle monitor with a 24-hour curfew. Court, lawyer, medical, employment, you can finish your GED. And employment and GED, both you have to supply a proof of enrollment or proof of employment schedule, the exact location you're going to be working. But you're going to have that 24 hours and you're going to stay out of Fulton County. So we shouldn't worry about you going to a MARTA station. Stay out of Fulton County unless you're here for court or to see your lawyer. That means get gas in Douglas County. Do not run out of gas. Don't get a flat tire. Don't stop for lunch. Throw snacks in your car. You have no reason to be in Fulton County except court or to see Miss Pinto, which Mr. Cazoli is filling in. Let's see. No drugs unless prescribed, no alcohol, no weapons. Now on count 2, no drugs unless prescribed, no alcohol, no weapons. Stay away from 680 Lee Street. That's all MARTA property, same thing. No planes, trains, automobiles, buses, no bus stops. You cannot go around any MARTA property whatsoever. And no further contact with Claire, Khajari. You can have an ankle monitor paid for by the county with a 24-hour curfew, court, lawyer, medical, GED, or employment, as long as you supply proof of enrollment, where you're going, and a schedule and proof of employment schedule and your exact location. You have to supply that to the ankle monitoring company and to your lawyer, just so you know the state monitors those, so don't try to outsmart the ankle monitor. Also, stay out of Fulton County. Once again, the only reason you come to Fulton County is court or to see your lawyer. Absolutely no reason for you to be in Fulton County whatsoever. $10,000 good bond. Best of luck to you, sir. But this will, go ahead. $10,000 good bond. Best of luck to you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So, Mr. Wilson, I know we got all these folks here, but so we got one officer, because I know your case is going to take a little bit. Can we go ahead and take Landry, Mr. Landry? It's Secondia Landry?
Secondia.
Secondia Landry. We'll swap him out and take Secondia. And then we'll take Miss Hill, since you got to go get her and come back up.
I mean, that's. Yeah, we'll go. Yeah. Figure.
Come on up on Mr. Langley's case. All right, officer, if you raise your right hand, you swear or firm testimony you're about to give is truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
You state, spell your name for the court reporter.
Detective K Hunter. That's Khunter.
All right, then just. Yeah, and we'll just stand by till they get Mr. Landry in here. Condia, is that how you say it, Mr. Pizzoli?
Your Honor, I don't know if I've heard him say his first name, but I believe that's it.
Okay. All right, this is position 323 CP 2174665. Secondia, sorry, sir, if I pronounced that wrong, Landry, 83 days on indictment. You've got count of rape and a count of battery. Go ahead, and the detective has been previously sworn. Go ahead, Ms. Patton.
Hi, Detective Hunter.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
Wonderful. Where are you currently employed?
Marta Police Department,
And how long have you been employed there?
7 years.
Were you employed there at the date of this incident, which, I'm sorry, I need to make it bigger, was March 16th, 2023?
Yes.
Okay. And how did you become aware of Mr. Landry?
Well, I have got a call pretty much on the 16th around, let me see, can I refer to my report? with the
Absolutely.
times?
And the report you're referring to, just to clarify with the court, what is that?
It's no, the arrest, I'm sorry, not the arrest, it's the initial report of the incident.
Okay, go ahead.
So approximately 3:13 a.m. on March 16th, at Art Center Motor Station, which is in Fulton County, a victim of Miss, let me get her name correct, Miss Gonzalez, I believe. Let me just make sure. I got several reports here, so just bear with me. Yes, Miss Gonzalez ran up to flag down an officer that was located at the Art Center Station and advised that officer that she was just being sexually assaulted.
Okay. So you said Art Center Station?
Art Center Station,
Okay.
ART.
And that's in Fulton County?
Yes,
Okay. So she flagged down an officer and stated that she had been sexually assaulted.
yes.
Do you know which officer she flagged down?
Officer Virtus. Virtus?
Can you just go ahead and spell that,
Yes,
please?
Vertus.
Okay. Did you ever speak to Officer Virtus? I don't want to
No.
mispronounce it.
No, I haven't, but can I give you a little more detail of that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so she flagged him down on that date, on March 16th, at about 3:13 a.m. She reported back the next morning. She reported to him, but then she reported back the next morning, actually did the report of the sexual assault. She couldn't stand by for whatever reason, she couldn't stand by that evening. So she came back she made contact with us at 4:04 a.m. on the 17th.
Okay.
With the Sergeant Ross. Sergeant Ross was dispatched to the address where she was located at. At that time, I was an on-call detective at the time, so they raised me, and I met them at Grady Hospital to do the interview.
Okay. So you said you met her at Grady Hospital?
Yes,
Why was she at Grady?
for sexual assault kit to be completed.
Was the sexual assault kit completed?
Yes,
And were the results sent off?
Yeah, it was submitted evidence to GBI.
Okay, so the sexual assault kits, can you give us a little bit more of information of how they work and what they are to determine?
Pretty much, sexual assault kit is a kit that they do at the hospital. They actually have a specialty nurse, which is the same nurse that would conduct the exam.
Okay.
Pretty much what it does is the nurse would go into detail with the victim, without us in the room, ask what happened. They would swab the different areas where she was penetrated. They also take pictures, clothing, all that stuff that through the sexual assault kit to be able to determine as when they do that we could submit it to GBI to see if we get a forensic hit on the DNA.
Okay, so are there vaginal and anal swabs?
Yes, this one I believe was only a vaginal swab.
Okay, and did the nurse indicate from the vaginal swab or any pictures that she took that a sexual assault had occurred?
Yes, she did say there was bruising.
Okay, so where specifically did she describe bruising on the victim?
I don't have that on this report. That's actually her report that they would do, and I have not got a copy of that report.
But would that report be submitted into evidence?
Yes, that would be, yes.
Okay. Did you ever speak to the nurse?
Yes.
Okay, and what did the nurse indicate to you?
Nurse indicated, I spoke to the nurse before she actually did the sexual assault kit. And pretty much she was saying, after speaking to the victim, that she was sexually assaulted the morning prior to that. She did ask the victim if she took a shower or anything prior to coming back to the hospital to get the kit done, and she said she has not.
Did the victim at any time indicate that she was actually penetrated?
Yes, she did. She admitted it to me when I did my interview.
Okay. Vaginally?
Yes.
Was she anally penetrated?
No, she just said he forced his penis into her vagina.
Okay. So let's skip ahead here. You said you were able to speak to the victim. What exactly did she tell you happened? And let's just step by step.
Okay, can I read from my report?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Your Honor, we would ask that you can refer to his notes as much as he wants, Your Honor, but we would ask that this be testimony that isn't read.
Right, once you look at it, refresh your recollection, then testify.
Okay. Okay. Can you actually, what's the question again?
Okay, so when you went and spoke to the victim in this case, I believe you said her name was Miss Gonzalez.
Yes.
Tell me what happened when you spoke with her.
Ms. Gonzalez stated that she was at the Art Center station. She actually met the guy on the train prior to the incident. They was talking, and it is CCTV footage of them talking. They got to Art Center station. They exited the station, and she came back in the station roughly about 2:30 a.m. roughly, approximately. Came in the station, looked around, went to the emergency exit, opened the door, let him in. Pretty much they both walked over toward the corner. I want to say the northwest corner of the station, could be northeast. My direction a little off, but walked over to the corner. You do see the suspect then pull over. What we have is a floor cleaning machine. Pretty much it's a big enough size where you see him pull it toward the wall where it could try and make a little blockage. That was there. That started about 2:30. Watching video, CCTV showed up until about 3:13. The victims, you see the victim running like she's running for life, like her life. She's running from behind the little mop thing, and you see the suspect running after her. Mrs. Gonzalez saw an officer. She did like a lap or two around the concourse area of Art Center Station. Mm-hmm. She observed the officer. She went to the officer. When she was running to the officer, then you see the suspect ran out toward the emergency exit.
Did Ms. Gonzalez indicate to you that she was interested in a sexual relationship with the accused in this case?
No.
Did she indicate to you that she and him had agreed upon a sexual relationship?
No. And she did state that while it was going on, he did choke her as well.
Did she state to you that she said anything while this rape was occurring?
No,
Did she indicate to you that the defendant said anything?
no.
Okay, so let's go back to your viewing of the footage. Did you, actually not your viewing of the footage, your interview with specifically the victim in this case, Miss Gonzalez, she told you that she had known the defendant?
She had met him early, not known, but just had met him earlier.
Did she give you a physical description of him?
No, she didn't.
Okay. Did she indicate that the person she had met earlier was the person who committed the sexual assault against her?
Yes.
Okay. When you were speaking to the victim, was this recorded in any way?
Yes, it was recorded through body camera.
Okay. Did you submit that body cam footage to evidence?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's uploadevidence.com. All
Okay.
video footage uploadevidence.com.
Okay, excellent. So how did you identify the defendant?
I don't think we're identified through viewing CCTV of the actual time of the incident
Okay.
that occurred. By doing that, after I reviewed the CCTV footage, also he left property behind at the location
At the location of what
of
specifically?
Art Center. He
Okay.
left a yellow suitcase and like a big green type duffel bag type thing. He left that at our station, so our officers were able, actually took that and put that in our property and evidence room. I then went over to our property evidence room, went through the luggage to see if there's anything that I could locate to ID him. We did find a cell phone inside one of the bags. At that point, I did take the cell phone out of evidence, took it into my custody, went to Fulton County and got a search warrant for the cell phone. By doing the search warrant on the cell phone, after the cell phone was what we call dumped, it did come up with the suspect's name, which is Landry Secundia. Name was that phone belonged to.
Okay. Did the records indicate that the phone was present around the time of the alleged sexual assault?
Yes.
Okay. And did you ever show the victim a picture of the defendant?
No, I have not.
Okay. Did the victim ever in any way describe to you what the defendant looked like?
Just a black male. She didn't give any details on his exact physique or anything.
Okay. So to be clear from the footage, do you see the actual rape occur?
Through CCTV footage, you don't see the actual rape occur. You do see them between the wall and the machine, behind there laying down. You can't see exactly over the barricade that he put there in place. You can't see it over it.
Okay. But you do see two people horizontal.
Yes.
Okay. And then you said at one point at the end, you said I think you described it as she was running for her life.
Yes.
Okay. What's the defendant doing at this time?
Defendant, well, as soon as when she ran out, the defendant ran directly behind her. Same thing. Like I said, to me, she seemed like she was running for her life, like he was going to do something to her if he caught her. He was running aggressively toward her. Like I said, they did probably 1 or 2 laps around the concourse. She observed a police officer. She flagged the officer down. He ran out of the station on the opposite end.
Okay. So let's go back to her sexual assault kit. You said they take pictures. Did you ever look at any of the pictures from that?
No, I do not have access to that at this time.
Okay. But would those pictures be submitted for evidence?
Yes, the
Okay.
sexual assault kit and everything in that will be submitted for evidence.
Okay. Did you ever speak to the nurse after the
I spoke to her briefly on the phone when she was telling me that the kit was ready, and she did say there was bruising, but that's about all that I did speak to the nurse about.
Did she say there was bruising around her vaginal area?
Vaginal, yes.
Okay. And by her, we mean Miss Gonzalez, correct?
Well, no, I'm talking, you just actually, I spoke to the nurse probably, correct?
Yeah, but you're saying indicated bruising around her vaginal area. Whose vaginal area?
Ms. Gonzalez, yes.
Okay.
The same nurse was Lori Malloy, was the same nurse at that time.
Okay. When you watched the CCT footage, was it in black and white? Was it in color?
Color.
Were you able to get a clear picture of the defendant's face?
Not clear, but you were able to see where I could be able to ID who he was.
Okay. The person who you saw on the footage, are they in the courtroom today?
Yes, they are.
Can you please describe to the left or to the right of me and an article of clothing? Feel free to stand up.
Yeah, I can see it on the camera.
Okay.
He's on your right. He's wearing a blue jumpsuit with a white t-shirt, kind of a little minor fro, sitting next to his, I guess, attorney, which is wearing a suit and a white shirt. Sitting to his right, I believe.
Okay. Please let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Mr. Landry.
Record so reflect.
Were there any witnesses in this incident?
No, there's no witnesses in the incident.
So when you saw the footage, and I believe you said it was around 3 a.m. in the morning. So was there no one there?
The station actually closed at that time.
Oh,
The
okay.
station closes at 2:00. Art Center Station is one of our stations that we cannot fully secure.
Okay.
So people did have access to it. I did observe officers clear the station at one point, probably while they was there, but my officers did not go to that one corner. Then normally when the officers clear the station, they would check the platform, check by the bathroom, and then they would exit the station. So they did clear the station like they're supposed to. They just didn't go to that other corner, which if they would have went to the other corner, they would have saw the incident.
Okay. Did Ms. Gonzalez tell you what she was doing there? If it was closed?
She said they was just going somewhere to sit down to talk.
She and
Mr. Landry.
Did she indicate to you at what time did it turn from a conversation to something else?
She was able to tell me the time, but watching CCTV footage, I want to say it was roughly about 3:10ish, but I believe about 3:13 when they start running out. Actually, let me take that back. She did say he was penetrating and choking about 5 to 10 minutes prior to her able to get loose.
Okay. You have charged Mr. Landry with rape and 1 count of battery. Did you charge Mr. Landry with rape based upon the information you learned from Ms. Gonzalez's sexual assault kit and her testimony and viewing of the CT footage?
Well, I charged him for that with the CCTV footage and her testimony. I did not have the sexual assault kit available to me at that time when I did charge him.
Okay. Did you charge him with battery based upon her conversation and
For
testimony?
her conversation and testimony, well, there was bruises around her neck.
You saw bruising around her neck?
There's pictures taken, which that was uploaded evidence.com as well.
Okay. Marks around her neck. Bruising?
Bruising.
Okay. Are you post-certified?
Yes.
Were you post-certified at that time?
Yes, I was.
Did Ms. Gonzalez specifically tell you that she did not wish to have sexual intercourse with the defendant?
Yes, she did.
Did she tell you about how long it lasted?
About 5 to 10 minutes.
Did she say it was penetration the whole time?
Yes.
What was her demeanor when you spoke to her?
Kind of distraught. Just not exactly knowing what was going on. Confused a little bit. Nervous, scared.
Did you ever run a GCIC on the defendant?
I do not remember if I don't believe I did.
Okay.
Actually, on the defendant, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, defendant, yes, I did. I'm sorry. I'll tell you about the victim. No, but yes, you did run GCIC on the defendant. Yes.
And from the GCIC, you were able to ascertain a name, date of birth, things like that.
Yes. Well, he was actually involved in another incident prior to.
Well,
yes.
I'm going to hold you
Okay.
off just because we can't talk about that here. But,
Okay. But yes.
I'm just going to prevent you from getting objected to. Is there anything else that you learned during your investigation that we've not covered here today?
No, the only other thing that we haven't covered, I did go ahead and do a swab of his mouth to submit to GBI as well for evidence.
For DNA
The
testing?
DNA test, yes.
And have the results come back yet?
No, they have not.
One second, Your Honor.
Okay.
Last question. I think you already answered it though. It's not called a rape kit. You referred to it as a sexual assault kit. That was submitted for evidence.
Yes, it was.
Okay. All right. Nothing further at this time.
All right, cross, Mr. Cazoli.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, good morning, Detective Hunter.
Good morning.
Detective, you became, when did you first become involved in this case?
I became involved in the case on March 17th.
Were you the person that she initially reported the incident to? I know you mentioned a Sergeant Ross as well.
Well, her first initial report was to Officer Virtues on the morning of the 16th.
Yes, sir. And then on the 17th, when she came back in.
On the 17th, she came back. She actually, Sergeant Ross was dispatched to her location where she was located at. At that time, since it was a sexual assault claim, they raised myself, I was an on-call detective at the time, raised me, and that's why I responded to the location. That's why I got involved with it the 17th that morning at Grady Hospital where I did the interview.
Okay, and then so Sergeant Ross met her at her home?
I don't think it was I can't recall if it was a home or a motel. I can't recall.
It was a residential.
I can't recall. That's something I did not go to that location.
Okay, and did Sergeant Ross accompany her to Grady?
Yes.
Okay. And then do you happen to know the time that she checked in at Grady? I assume it was on the 17th, correct?
It was on the 17th. Can I look at my report to look at the time?
Please do.
So Sergeant Ross stated about 4:04 a.m. is when she was dispatched to Ms. Gonzalez. So I'll say anytime after that, after that, it was a check-in at Grady. I didn't have the exact time for Grady.
But it was the 17th?
Yes, it was the 17th. Yes.
And then you met them at Grady as well?
Yes.
Okay, and then did you meet before any procedure was done on her, or had that already been going by the time you arrived?
I remember she was getting vitals done at the time, but sexual assault kit was after I did my interview with her.
Okay, and then I know that you don't have specifics about bruising other than what the nurse told you. Was there any other factual indicators that a sexual assault or any sexual activity had taken place? Was there semen found?
That would be through the sexual assault kit. That's something I don't have that back yet, so I'm not sure what was in that. Like the only other thing was the bruise around the neck that I was able to observe.
Okay. So the extent, in terms of injuries, the extent that you understand is that there was bruising.
Yes.
And then the nurse said that bruising was consistent with a sexual assault?
Yes.
Okay. At what point did you hear her whole side of the story? I guess the first time she made a full statement about what happened, was that before or after the kit was performed?
She did not make a false statement. I know you said she made a false statement. I don't think she made a false statement. When I was interviewed her, I met her at the Grady Hospital. I interviewed her at that point.
Okay, and you would not describe that as a full statement?
No.
Okay, do you know if she has spoken with any other detective or investigator since?
No, I'm not unaware of.
Okay, so let's just, I guess, talk about what she said to you during that initial interview then. You said that she mentioned that she was vaginally penetrated.
Yes.
That she was, that this took place at MARTA.
Yes.
And that she had met this individual earlier.
Yes.
Did she expand on what she meant by that? Did she mean earlier at a different stop? Did she mean earlier in the day?
Earlier that night.
Okay. But she didn't indicate where she had met him?
No.
And then I was a little confused about, probably on me, I was a little confused about your testimony following that, and exactly what happened that led to this. You said that she let the defendant in through an emergency exit?
Yes,
Into what?
into our station, into the
Okay.
concourse area where the incident took place.
Okay, because the station was closed at the time?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, sir.
Please, no. All right, and then so the station was closed at the time, and they hadn't arrived on a MARTA bus or a MARTA train.
No, per CCTV, they came in, they was outside the station and came into the station.
Okay. When you said that she let him in, how did she have access?
She, what is called fade evaded. She pushed through the gate.
Okay. And at this point, and then I know that you mentioned a couple times on direct that you did not see the actual assault on CCTV.
No.
Okay, you just saw them kind of in a corner.
Yes.
How did she describe the defendant?
Black male. She didn't give too much distinct description of him at the time.
Okay. Any other qualities? Clothing, size, hair?
No.
And just as a warning for the general audience, I do want to get a little more detail about the actual attack, just if anybody is sensitive to that.
If anybody feels like they need to leave because they don't want to hear it, feel free.
Okay, officer. And then, so starting with the sexual assault, because I understand that there are 2 assaults being accused today. Starting with the sexual assault. Well, actually, let me ask you, which of those took place first, or were they concurrent? The attack around the neck or the sexual assault?
From Ms. Gonzalez, it was concurrent. It was at the same time.
And did she give any sort of description about what how it actually happened? What was, did he grab her?
She was laying on her side, and they was laying on their side, and he penetrated her vagina from the side.
Okay, and was he holding her down?
He was, at the same time, he had his hands around her throat, choking her.
Okay.
What she stated.
So, was he using his body weight to hold her down? Was it all his hands?
I can't recall how he was holding her down, but there was like a mark around her neck, like she was being choked.
Okay.
Can't say it with both hands, but there was a mark around the neck.
Okay. And were there marks all around her neck? Do you recall exactly?
If I recall, I believe it was in the front part of the neck, if I recall.
Okay. And were her clothes removed during it? Were her clothes partially removed?
Well, the clothes she had on, and that was actually collected for evidence as well, was like a long T-shirt and maybe like might have been like a short pair of shorts.
Okay. And in the CCTV TV footage, you said that you weren't able to get a clear picture of the defendant's face.
Yes.
Could you get a clear picture of his body, what he was wearing?
His body and his clothing, yes.
Okay. And so describe, with as much detail as you can, describe exactly what he looked like on CCTV.
I recall he came in, he had a green or brown big duffel bag. He put on a yellow suitcase behind him. I want to say it might have been like an army fatigue pants. And I want to say a gray shirt. I haven't looked at the video since then, actually, which I probably, no, that's my fault. I should have looked at it before I came this morning, but I haven't looked at the video again to see exactly what his clothing was. But all that is uploaded evidence.com.
All right, but from what you recall, can you recall his height, his weight, his hair?
I can't recall if he had a hood on or not. I know I can't tell from CCTV how tall you are. I'm not a professional to be able to, oh yeah, he's that height or that weight. But like I said, I did see he was a slender gentleman, and about not too tall. But like I said, my CCTV cameras, I can't tell you how tall you are.
Okay. Could you tell complexion? Anything else that
you can tell? Yes, dark complexion.
All right, and then there was nothing else that stood out to you about him that you'd be able to identify him beyond what you've described?
Yes.
You mentioned that there was the green duffel bag.
Yes,
as well. You mentioned, I think kind of later on that it was, that he left his property. Where was that property left?
right where the incident took place at.
Okay, and it was the green duffel?
Like a green or brown duffel bag, and a yellow suitcase.
And you mentioned that a cell phone was found. Was that found in the green duffel? Or
I can't remember where it was located.
was it found in one of those two items?
It was found in one of the pieces of luggage, yes.
And was there any identifying information on the phone, on the outside of the phone?
No,
The only identifying information you found from the cell phone was through the search warrant?
yes.
And what was that exactly? Was that identifying information? Was it just that the phone belonged to him?
Name, information about him.
Okay, and how did you find that? What was it on the cell phone that indicated that?
Through the search warrant, when we do a phone dump, it gives all the information about the phone. And it had, his name was assigned to him, and it was his phone.
And again, forgive me if this is common knowledge. When you say that the phone belonged to him, that his information was attached to this phone, do you mean he was the purchaser of the phone? It was his serial number was attached to him?
I can't tell you the purchase of the phone. I know his name was associated with that phone and that phone number that was found in his property.
Okay, so it was the phone number itself that was,
No.
okay, understood. Was there anything else in the green duffel or the yellow suitcase that had identifying information?
No,
Were fingerprints attempted? Did you or any other officer attempt to lift fingerprints from the luggage to
no,
match them?
no.
And you mentioned that that you have not made contact with the victim again, correct?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I asked that confusingly. Correct? Yes, correct.
I have not made contact with the victim.
And to your knowledge, was any photo lineup produced for
No,
any in-person lineup?
no,
Has at any point during the investigation, has the alleged victim made a positive identification?
no.
Okay. Now I just want to, I don't know the extent of your knowledge on this. I want to speak about the actual arrest of Mr. Landry.
Okay.
When did that take place?
Unaware. When I made contact, he was already in Fulton County Jail when I obtained my warrants. I believe it was APD that actually made the arrest on him.
Okay. Do you know any information about the arrest, such as what he was wearing at the time?
No, I do not.
To your knowledge, you mentioned on direct that a swab was taken from Mr. Landry.
Yes.
Do you know when that was taken?
Let's see, do I have the date on that? Let me see. I don't have that information in the report here. I do have that in my investigation notes though.
Okay.
But I don't have that with me.
Understood. Your Honor, if I may take a moment.
Yes.
All right, nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Anything else on direct?
Just to. Maybe two. You said you just testified that you did take a swab from Mr. Landry. Did you ever speak to him?
No, I was not able to speak to him.
Did you indicate to him why you were taking the swab?
Yes.
Did he say anything about it?
No.
You also just testified that Ms. Gonzalez said she had met Mr. Landry earlier that day. Is that correct?
Yes.
Has she ever met him earlier?
Not that I know of.
Did she indicate to you that they were in a romantic relationship of any sort?
No, she did not.
Did she ever indicate to you that she knew that they would develop a sexual relationship?
No, she did not.
Did she ever tell you she knew his name?
No, she did not.
Nothing further.
All right, Ian, follow up.
Nothing from the defense, Your Honor.
All right. Anything else for this officer?
Nothing from the state.
All right. Stay safe, detective.
Thank you very much,
All
Your
right.
Honor.
Thank you for your patience. All right, go ahead with the argument.
Your Honor, we would concede that the actions described here, as well as the evidence collected later on, indicate that some assault took place. Our big contention, Your Honor, is identification. The alleged victim in this case mentioned no special details other than him being a black male. The officer testified that there was no clear visual on the CCTV indicating his face, and that the rest of his description included that there was bags there, he had dark complexion, and then possibly a gray shirt and fatigue pants. But there was no testimony indicating that Mr. Landry was ever wearing those, or that's what he was wearing when he was arrested. Most importantly, Your Honor, Mr. Landry does not have one of his hands. He has, would we be able to stand?
Sure.
Stand him up. If you want to stand up. Your Honor, on his right arm here, he has no hand and he has relatively limited use of his right arm. I won't go so far, at least at this stage, to say that that would make these allegations impossible, Your Honor, but we would have certainly liked to have seen that in any sort of identification. It was just mentioned several times that the alleged victim could not say anything about him other than the fact that he was a black male, and that even on the CCTV, there was nothing special about it, no other individual, aspect of it other than the fact that, he had dark complexion and the potential clothing. So the one connection, Your Honor, that we have of Mr. Landry being anywhere near this incident is the fact that his cell phone was found in luggage that was at the incident location. And the irony is not lost on me that our previous case that we heard here is somebody's phone was stolen at MARTA and was found in somebody else's luggage. So last point, Your Honor, there was no photo identification made. There was no indication that the victim knew him to be Mr. Landry. As far as we can tell, the only connection here is the cell phone. If no photo identification was made, no in-person lineup was performed, Mr. Landry was arrested. And again, we don't know the details of how he was arrested, how he was picked out for this. The only connection we have here is the cell phone, Your Honor. So for that reason, we're asking for a dismissal.
All right. All right. What says the state?
Sorry, I'm still writing.
That's okay.
Your Honor, we do believe that there has been enough to satisfy the probable cause for both the rape and the battery for this defendant. In reference to defense counsel stating that there was nothing connecting him, officer testified that there was no one else on the platform. It was closed. Officer also stated that the person from the CT footage that he viewed was the person in the courtroom, that sworn officer testimony, and he himself watched the footage. There was phone found in the luggage, the phone belonging to this defendant. In reference to the elements of the actual rape and battery, those have all been satisfied, as there was evidence testified that the nurse indicated that there was bruising around the vaginal area. The victim indicated that it was not consented to, that it was forced. She also was observed to have bruising around her neck, indicating the battery. I believe there's enough here to satisfy probable cause. As Your Honor is aware, probable cause is a low burden. And honestly, the testimony from Detective Hunter in reference to his conversation with the victim, in reference to him personally viewing the footage of the incident, and his speaking to the nurse later, all of those elements for rape and battery have been satisfied through probable cause. We would ask that this court find probable cause that this defendant did, that there's enough probable cause that this defendant did commit the acts of rape and battery towards Ms. Gonzalez.
All right. I'll find probable cause on both counts. It's been in 83 days without indictment. Mr. Cazzoli?
Your Honor, we would love to be heard on bond if
All right.
possible.
The defendant has 16 arrest cycles in Georgia, no felony convictions, a misdemeanor conviction in 2021 out of Clayton County for sexual battery, probation violation in 2017, failure to appear in 2016, 2019, and 2020. Nothing further to report.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Cazzoli.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Landry is 24 years old. He has been living in Georgia his whole life. His whole family lives here as well. The current address on file is correct. I believe that's 2679 McAfee Road, Decatur, Georgia, 30032. He's been living there about 8 months before his arrest. And he lives there with his grandparents, Dolores and Nathan. He has a son who is turning 3. Is he 3 already? He just turned 3, right? Named Khalil, who stays primarily with him. When he was released, he was staying primarily with him, and he's currently with his mother, but DFACS may be involved again due to the fact that she's not able to care for him fully. Your Honor, he received his GED in 2018. Your Honor, he was working at the State Farm Arena doing setup and takedown. He had been doing that for about 3 months. He confirmed to me that he will be able to go back to that job. Your Honor, we are asking for a bond in this matter. Again, as we're approaching those 90 days, we're asking for a bond not to exceed $50,000.
All right. It looks like he does have one open case where he had a UJR through the jail. It is possession of Schedule II controlled substance and drug-related objects. He got a UJR through jail February of 2023.
Yes, Judge, I believe I represent him in that one.
Oh, okay. All right. Go ahead, Ms. Patton.
Yes, Your Honor. The state is requesting that this remain in a no bond status as a danger to the victim, also to the community as well. Pretrial just mentioned this defendant has a sexual battery misdemeanor from 2020, and now it is escalated to a rape charge, which is a felony. This defendant serves as a danger to the community at large, and there's a significant likelihood to reoffend. If Your Honor is inclined to set a bond above the state's objection, the state would ask for the rape charge that it be $50,000 and for the battery $10,000. With an ankle monitor attached to the defendant, 24-hour curfew with the exceptions of leave, medical, childcare. I think he does have a childcare and basic life necessities. No further contact with the victim in this case, Ms. Gonzalez, and a stay away from all MARTA platforms.
Okay. This bond will go into effect on that 91st day if he's not incarcerated. Ms. Hollenbeck, so he's been in 83 days without indictment. So if he's not indicted, it'll go in effect on the 91st day. Sir, if you get indicted before that 91st day, you'll be in no bond status. Kind of doing this, we've spoken with Judge Ingram and Judge McBurney, and this is kind of a way to keep things moving. So I can relieve a little pressure at the jail. No drugs unless prescribed, no alcohol, no weapons. Stay away from all MARTA property. That includes bus stop. You cannot sit down at a bus stop and tie your shoe. No train stations, no bus stops, any property. Basically, if you see somebody with a MARTA t-shirt, consider them standing on MARTA property. Stay away from 1255 West Peachtree Street and all other MARTA stations. No further contact with the victim. And Ms. Hollenbeck, you've got the name from the warrants. You can have an ankle monitor paid for by the county with a 24-hour curfew, court, lawyer, medical, basic life necessities, child care. Employment, as long as you supply the name of your employer, proof of employment schedule, and the exact location you're going to be working. However, it will not be in Fulton County. You need to stay out of Fulton County except for court or to see your lawyer. Don't come into Fulton County for anything. Fill up with gas. Don't get a flat tire. Don't get snacks. Throw snacks in your car. Straight to the courthouse, straight out of Fulton County. Do not come back to Fulton County. And that includes MARTA in DeKalb County, sir. All MARTA, not just MARTA in Fulton County. any sort of rapid transportation through MARTA. 100,000 on count one, 50,000 on count two. Best of luck to you, sir. And that'll go into effect, Ms. Hollenbeck, on the 91st day. Thank you.
Your Honor, may my detective be excused?
Yes, thank you, sir. Stay safe. All right, so we got, is it Permies Hill?
So we'll do.
Okay. All right, yeah. Yeah. Come on up, detective. Thank you for being patient.
Have a good one. Thank you for coming back. Oh, let me get out of your way.
You want to raise your right hand? You swear firm testimony you're about to give is the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, if you state, spell your name for the court reporter.
Detective Ronnie Allen, RONNIE, Allen, ALLEN.
All right, stand by till we get Miss Hill out here. Oh, okay. And before everybody gets out here, so, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Cazzoli, do you know that Judge Newkirk signed a bond order before he's left, right?
For this case?
For this
Right.
defendant, yeah.
Did, I just saw it
Right.
before we got here.
So to your family, okay, Judge Newkirk, who just retired after a good long run here, signed a bond order for $100,000 good bond. Now, I won't touch the murder charge, but if I feel that the other one needs to be increased after I hear what I hear, I could increase the ag assault and the possession of a firearm during the commission of certain felonies. But right now, there is a $100,000 good bond that was set on May 23rd by Judge Henry Newkirk.
I was blown away.
Okay,
Blown away.
that was either some really good lawyering on Mr. Cazzoli's part.
Which I don't doubt.
And I understand this could be a really sensitive time, and I'm not, is mom there? Is there a mom there? Okay, mom. So if you have to, get up and walk out for a minute, please feel free, okay? All right. All right, this is position 4, 23 CP 217470, 70 days without indictment. However, like I said, Judge Newkirk did set a bond back on May 23rd. But I can adjust the two on ag assault and possession of firearm if I feel the need. There's murder and aggravated assault with family violence with a gun, possession of a firearm or a knife during the commission of a felony. Investigator Allen, you've been previously sworn. Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Detective Allen.
Good morning.
So Detective Allen, can you state by whom you're employed, please?
The Union City Police Department.
Okay, and I know you're a detective, but are you assigned to any specific division?
No,
And so for Union City, do all detectives work homicides?
we work everything. Usually we try to do who had the last call so that we don't get bombarded down with one specific type of case, but we get every case.
Okay, so this isn't your first homicide?
No,
Okay, thank you. Now, how long have you been employed with Union City?
7 years.
Okay, and are you post certified?
I am.
Okay. So I'd like to call your attention to April 4th of 2023. Now, did you have occasion to respond to this call that occurred on that date?
No.
Okay. Now, how did you become involved?
On April 5th, the incident started on April 4th, but it was close to midnight. I didn't get a call in until April 5th to interview the family members and the defendant in this case.
Okay. So you have done some investigatory work in this case?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, this case took place at 6273 Longino Drive. Is that in Union City?
Yes, sir.
And is that in Fulton County?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, can you give the court a synopsis of the events that occurred at this location on that date?
The Union City Police Department responded to a person shot that was located in the basement of that address, 6273 Longino Drive. Upon arrival, officers met with, I believe, the victim's uncle and the victim's grandmother, along with the defendant in this case. They pretty much took initial, statements of what transpired, and then notified the CID. I received a phone call by my lieutenant, Francisco Cedeno, that a person was deceased, and there were multiple people that we needed to interview. And I was asked to come in and, assist with the investigation by interviewing.
Okay. Now, initially, how did this call go out?
I believe it was a person shot himself or a person that was dead. But I don't have the I don't have the CAD report.
Okay. So do you recall if it was categorized as a suicide or not?
I don't recall, no.
Okay. Now, you stated that you interviewed the victim's family.
Yes, sir.
Did you, by any chance, get an opportunity to speak with the defendant in this case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what was the defendant? Well, I know you're not the lead detective in this case. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Have you had an opportunity to review the file?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When officers arrived at this location, did the defendant make a statement?
She stated that they had been drinking. They got into a physical altercation, and at which point he pulls out a gun and shoots himself.
Okay. Now, who is the victim identified in this case?
Mr. Antonio Hurston.
Okay.
The family calls him Tony.
Okay. And were you able to, by the time that you arrived at the scene, and you did go to the scene, is that correct?
I did not. I went to the police department.
Okay. Now, based on your review and your participation in this case, are you aware how the victim was located and found?
Yes.
Can you describe that to the court, please?
It was in the room in the basement. When you enter the resident, there's a door off to the, I believe it's the right, that leads you downstairs to the basement. Down there, there's a big space where there's a bed, there's a couch. I want to say like 2 couches, a TV, and I think the only thing that is missing down there is a bathroom. But it's a fairly large space. And once you're down there, you get to the bottom of the stairs, you turn left. There's a brief wall, but then there's the bed.
Okay. And how was the victim found? Let me stop you a minute. Let me be clear about what I'm asking you. So I want you to describe for the court not only how the victim was found, but the position and condition of the victim's body when officers arrived.
Gotcha. He was, if you're standing at the foot of the bed, he's to the left of the bed, about 2 feet away from the bed. There's a nightstand. He was positioned face down to the, almost like to the wall where that brief wall is. So the wall, the nightstand, the bed, he was face down in that position.
Okay. Now, your involvement with this case began the next day, is that correct?
The incident occurred, I believe, around 11 p.m. I wasn't notified until about 1 a.m. So it was within the 2-hour window.
Okay, great. Now, when you began your part in this case, what was your posture? Were you looking at this as a homicide, or was you looking at it as a suicide?
I wanted to get to the truth at heart. A big part of the investigation is learning what the actual truth is. So I could have seen it being a homicide, and I also could have seen it being a suicide. So I was looking at it as a person that was deceased.
Okay. Now, based on your experience and having worked previous homicides and what you saw from reviewing the file, what you saw at the scene, and you're talking to the defendant in this case. Were the evidence that you saw and the statements that the defendant made, were they consistent with a homicide, or were they consistent with a suicide?
They're consistent with a homicide.
Okay. Now, you interviewed the defendant, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, can you tell us what her statements were?
She was not necessarily saying detached, but she was unbothered initially, very vague. And it seemed like, she was holding something back for whatever reason. So I asked, what, happened, what transpired today, prior to the incident. So you said that Tony picked her up from work. They went to the liquor store, and they also had, I believe, Chick-fil-A. They were eating moments before the actual gun going off. She stated that her and Tony have exchanged words in the past. And she said that whatever she said caused Tony to then strike her in the face. She stated that she fell off the bed, and next thing she knows, she heard the gun go off.
Okay. Now, were there any indication that the defendant had been struck by the victim?
Yes.
And what did you see or notice about the defendant?
And I believe it's captured on my body camera as well. She had, I want to say, like maybe dry blood near her left eye. And she stated that Tony struck her with his right hand as if it was a backhand motion like this. So I asked in the interview, if somebody struck you with their right hand from the left to the right, how did you get injured on the right? And that was one of the things that was kind of like inconsistent with her testimony.
Okay. And was that the only indication that she stated where she was struck by the victim?
Yes.
And were there other bruises that you observed on the defendant?
There was blood on her, I believe, under her nails. I don't believe that there is any additional markings.
Okay. Now, the defendant had indicated that the victim was sitting on the bed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, again, I know you described where the victim was found. Based on that statement that the victim was sitting on the bed, and also was it her statement that he shot himself while sitting on the bed?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, based on that statement from the victim and based on where you found the victim in the house, the not only the position that the victim was in, but also his location in regards to the bed, is that indicative of someone inflicting a self-inflicted wound and landing in that position that you found the victim?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, did you indicate that to the defendant when you were interviewing?
I did.
And what was her response?
She stated that she don't know what to tell me. That's what happened. She's not lying, and I don't know what to tell you. She repeated, I don't know what to tell you.
Okay. Now, were there any other witnesses? Were you able to determine if there was any other witnesses in the room at the time of this incident?
There were no witnesses inside the room. It was Mr. Tony and the defendant, Ms. Hill. The uncle, Mr. Sinet, was upstairs, and Mr. Sinet's mother, I believe, which would be Tony's grandmother, was upstairs as well.
Okay. Now, did you do a gunshot residue?
Yes, we did one on Mrs. Hill's hands and her clothing. We also did one on Mr. Tony as well.
Okay. And where were those submitted?
The GBI.
And have you received anything in response to that?
No, sir.
Now, were you able to determine Well, let me ask you this. What were the wounds and where were they located on the victim?
On the victim, it was a headshot. I believe it's the side of the head, but I'm not 100% on the position. I do understand that Mr. Tony's right-handed, and if it was a self-inflicted wound, it would be to the right side of the head.
And do you recall if that is how the wound occurred?
I don't recall. I don't
Don't recall. Now, I think you stated earlier that the defendant stated that the victim was sitting in the bed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Were there any blood splatter or anything in the bed that indicated that the victim had been in the bed after receiving that gunshot wound?
No, sir.
Do you recall whether there was blood splatter that would indicate how the victim came to the position that he was found in?
I believe it's on that small wall that's adjacent to the nightstand. Additionally, the spent shell casing from the firearm went between the nightstand and that wall as well. There's blood splatter on that wall.
So had the victim been sitting in the bed, in your experience, is that where you would have found the shell casing?
If say that one more time, I apologize.
So had the victim been sitting in the bed as stated by the defendant, where would you expect to have found the shell casing?
On the bed.
And now, again, I know you said it, but where did you say you found the shell casing?
Between there's a small wall. So the small wall, the nightstand, it was in between the small wall and the nightstand.
Okay. Would that be indicative, finding it there, of someone sitting in the bed?
Can you rephrase that?
The location of where the shell casing was. Could it have landed there had the victim been sitting in the bed?
No.
Now, did the defendant state whether or not the victim had hit her previously?
I believe she did state that.
Okay. And was the defendant asked if she had ever hit the victim?
I don't believe we asked that question.
Okay. Now, did you talk to the uncle?
I did.
And what was his statement?
His statement was that the defendant and the victim have a troubled relationship. They're always at each other's throats, but the victim does everything, for her. He, picks her up from work. He washes her clothes. He spends money on her. He takes her places. And on this evening, he stated that he heard an argument, which, he couldn't make out what they were actually saying. He said it sounded like cussing, but he couldn't make it out. And then next thing you know, he heard a loud pop.
And did the uncle state how long it took, or what was the time from hearing the pop to when he entered the room?
I don't recall.
And did the uncle state if the defendant made any statements to him?
She stated that, the uncle stated that she came upstairs saying Tony shot himself, and begins to wail and begins to roll around on the ground, saying that he had killed himself.
Okay. Now, was there any indication? So her statement to the uncle was after the victim shot himself, he continued to move around on the floor. Is that correct?
No. That was for Miss Hill.
Oh, okay.
He stated that Miss Hill came upstairs and said that Tony shot himself, and then that's when Miss Hill began to roll around on the ground, saying that Tony killed himself.
Okay. Now, you charged the defendant here with murders, and can you tell the court what probable cause you used to file that charge?
Based on the testimony of Ms. Hill, and the evidence that we collected from the scene, her story is inconsistent with the self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Okay. And you also charged her with aggravated assault, is that correct?
That's correct.
And can you tell the court what probable cause you used to make that charge?
In a situation where a gun is involved, where it leads to the endangerment of another person, where you pull out a gun and you point it at somebody, you actually pull the trigger, or anything of that matter, it becomes an aggravated assault.
Okay. Now, do we know that the defendant died from a gunshot wound? Or this victim died from a gunshot wound? Has the autopsy been completed?
I believe so. I haven't reviewed the autopsy report.
Okay. And on the third charge was possession of a firearm. And can you state to the court what probable cause you used to file that one?
So the victim, Ms. Hill, stated, I'm sorry, not the victim, but the defendant, Ms. Hill, stated that Tony picked the gun up from the nightstand, which is next to the bed, and put it to his head. She stated that the gun's always there. So just the possession of the firearm, knowing the location, and being able to say that, the gun was in close proximity of her, it was the reason behind that particular charge.
Okay. And when was the defendant arrested in this case?
That same evening.
Okay. So it would have been the next day?
That would have been April 5th.
And did you speak with anyone else other than the uncle?
And the grandmother.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Kazoli, cross.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, good morning, investigator.
Good morning, sir.
You became involved in this case on April 5th, correct?
That's correct.
And that was the following day, or was that the same day of the incident?
It was the same day of the incident. Again, the incident occurred around 11 p.m. on April 4th, which spilled over after midnight. I didn't get a phone call until I believe it was 1:30 a.m. So that would have been April 5th.
Okay, and then you said that you did not go to the scene yourself, correct?
That's correct.
Did you speak to the family yourself?
Yes, sir.
Was that on the 5th?
That was on the 5th, yes.
And was it you who met with the victim's uncle and the victim's grandmother?
By the time I got to the police department, my lieutenant was already in the conference room with the uncle and grandmother, and I sat in pretty much right at the beginning of that interview. Excuse me.
Do you recall about what time that interview took place? Or at least what time you joined it?
Again, I got the phone call. I want to say it was around 1:30, so it would have been between 1:35 and 2 a.m. because I live in Union City.
Okay, so you just went right across. Okay.
Correct.
You mentioned that initially you did not know at the time whether this was going to be a homicide or a suicide, and that you were going in with an open mind. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Did the victim's uncle and the victim's grandmother have a perspective on that at the time?
They did, based on the past dealings that they encountered, but from what the uncle said, it was never a situation where it got so violent that, it resulted in death. However, Ms. Hill made a statement to the grandmother that when one of Tony's coworkers had recently passed, before this incident, and he attended the funeral. Ms. Hill told the grandmother that Tony's gonna make me kill him because she believed that Tony and the deceased coworker were intimate.
Okay. To your knowledge, according to either the victim's uncle or the victim's grandmother, had she ever threatened Tony?
That statement.
To his face, I should say.
That I don't recall, but the statement that I just previously stated was what she provided to me that evening.
To your knowledge, had officers ever been called for a situation between them?
I don't have that information.
Okay. And I know you did your best to describe it, so I'm going to try to figure out exactly what you're saying for some of this about where the victim was found. I have here 2 feet from the bed face down. So we have his direction facing down. Was his head away from the bed? Was his head perpendicular or parallel to the bed, or was it facing the bed?
It was perpendicular, like almost toward the almost toward the wall, where if you're coming down the stairs, again, you come down the stairs, there's like a brief partition. It's not necessarily like a full wall, but a brief partition, and that's where the victim was found.
Okay, so when you enter, is this basement an enclosed room?
Yes.
Okay, and then so there's a doorway?
Yes.
And where is the bed in relation to the doorway?
If you're coming down the stairs, the bed is to the left.
So is it up against the wall, the left side wall, if you're coming into the basement on the left side wall? I'm sorry if I can't get that on mic.
I can demonstrate from this wall. So if this is the stairs behind me and I'm walking down the stairs, the bed would be where the judge is sitting.
Okay, and is it up against that?
Up against this wall.
That wall, the wall on the side. Okay, not the same wall as the door that the door is attached to.
The doorway, because of the brief partition, I want to say that brief partition connects to the door frame or the doorway of that room.
And where Tony's body was found, that was on closer to the door, closer to the far wall, or closer to the wall away from the bed?
It's closer to the partition of the doorway.
Okay. And the partition is in front of the doorway? I think if we ignore the partition, assume, is this room a square or a rectangle?
It would be more, I would say more rectangle than square.
Okay, and then so assuming we have the doorway, we have the wall to your left is where the bed is, the wall across from you, and then the wall across from the bed. Is that a
correct?
Okay. Which of those 4 walls was Tony's body closest to?
It would be the wall where the headboard is. So
the doorway
to the doorway, yes.
And his head was facing that
yes
wall. Okay, and then you mentioned that there was a nightstand as well.
Correct.
And where was that nightstand?
It was in between that wall partition and the bed. It was in between those two.
You mentioned that the shell casing was found in between the wall and the nightstand?
Correct.
Okay, and how close is the nightstand to the bed?
It's very close.
I mean, are they almost touching?
You could say almost touching, yeah.
On direct, you said that the shell casing could not have landed where it did on if this was a self-inflicted wound from a shot from the bed, correct?
That's not correct.
All right, could you correct me, please?
That statement stated that if Tony had been sitting on the bed, would the shell casing have, projected itself to the the partition wall and the nightstand?
And about what is the distance between the partition wall and where that would have been fired?
I didn't measure, so a guess would be 3 feet, maybe.
And it's your testimony that a shell casing could not have projected 3 feet?
And land by the wall, it would have bounced off the rear wall and landed on the bed. If Tony was shot on the bed, he was not.
Would it not matter what angle the shot came from?
Angles could matter, yes, sir.
Okay. So are you conceding that it is possible that a shell casing could have landed there, or are you still saying that it could not have?
It could not.
Okay. You mentioned that when you spoke with the victim's uncle, that there was a troubled relationship between the victim and the defendant?
That's correct.
Could you expand a little bit on that and what he described?
Basically, the uncle stated that from the time that Tony met Miss Hill, he knew something was off with her. He knew she was trouble. He didn't specifically say that, on this date, this will happen, on this date, this happened. He said over a course of, 6 years of their relationship, he would, bring Miss Hill over and wouldn't let nobody, wouldn't tell anybody in the family. And that began, during COVID. But as far as like witnessing arguments, never, seeing, them getting into a physical altercation, but witnessing arguments where they're, using profane language and accusing, someone of something like that was like a norm for them. And then it was all unsalted with the consumption of alcohol.
Okay. But part of the reason that he said that it was troubled is because Tony hid her from them. You mentioned that. You said that during COVID.
When they initially were trying to, I guess, start living together. Yes, and then I believe he stated that she wasn't contributing to the household, and she didn't like how, she treated Tony pretty much.
Did he ever speak to you about whether Tony had ever offered violence to Ms. Hill?
That wasn't disclosed, no.
On direct, you also mentioned that his position on the floor was not consistent with a homicide. Can you give me a little more detail about?
I stated that wasn't consistent with a suicide.
My apologies, that it was consistent with a homicide. Can you give me a little more details about what about his position on the floor indicates one way or the other?
So again, Miss Hill and Tony were the only two downstairs. Based on the testimony that she provided, she stated that Tony shot himself on the bed, which, in my experience, if he shot himself on the bed, there would be blood spattered, there would be the shell casing, the gun would have been there. But it wasn't. It was, almost 2 feet away from the bed. He was in a face down position, and she stated that when she was hit by Tony, she fell off the bed. And looking at the crime scene photos, there was nothing that was disturbed on the opposite side of the bed where she stated that she fell off. So I asked, I questioned her about, that particular portion. There's some inconsistencies in your story. Do you care to elaborate what transpired? And she pretty much said that he hit her, and that's all she knows.
Okay. So you answered part of my question right at the beginning. My question was specifically about his position on the floor. And you mentioned that he was, that the reason that it's not consistent with a self-inflicted wound is that he was off the bed.
Correct, based on her testimony.
Okay. And is there, sorry, give me one moment here. Okay, so it's because of him being on the floor itself that is not consistent with a self-inflicted wound on the bed?
No, the self-inflicted wound on the bed, that was Ms. Hill's testimony. the fact that if she was providing the information that she recalls and the way that she, she answered her question, she stated that he was on the bed. So I asked, how did he end up off the bed? And she didn't ever say he stood up. She said he was sitting by the edge of the bed or anything of that sort. So when, we got there to see him laying down, face down 2 feet away from the bed, how did he get there if he wasn't standing up? So her accounts of everything, or her accounts of what transpired were slightly off.
Okay, so it's not necessarily his position on the floor that's inconsistent. It's the fact that Ms. Hill did not mention he was on the floor.
Correct.
Understood. You mentioned that Ms. Hill had some dried blood near her eye.
Correct.
Was there any bruising that you could see or any other marks?
I don't recall if I saw bruising, but I definitely saw the dry blood near her eye.
Okay. Where was the firearm found?
I don't know. I didn't go to the scene.
And it was not in the report where the firearm was found?
I'm not clear. I'm not sure at this time, but if it's in there, I don't know what that information is.
Has it been confirmed that a firearm was found?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Can you describe the firearm?
I didn't see the firearm. I think it's a Beretta 92, and I think that's a part of the initial report. And when I spoke with Mr. Hurston, the victim's uncle, I believe he stated that it was a 9mm.
Okay, and but again, just in your reports, in your conversations, you at least aren't sure where the firearm was discovered or if it was discovered?
I'm not sure where the firearm was discovered.
Okay. And to your knowledge, was there an attempt to lift fingerprints from the firearm?
The firearm itself has been submitted to the GBI. I don't have any results back as of right now.
Your Honor, if I may take a moment.
Yes.
You mentioned on direct that Ms. Hill came upstairs and told, who's the first person she made contact with?
I believe that was the uncle.
Okay, and that she said that he had killed himself.
Correct.
About how soon did that happen after the uncle either heard the pop or to your knowledge when the incident took place?
I remember him telling me that, but I don't recall the information now, right at this point.
All right, nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, redirect.
Just one. Okay, Detective, you were asked about how you concluded that what you saw or how you found the victim was not consistent with a self-inflicted. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, was it just how the body was found, or was it a totality of what you?
It was a totality.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It was a totality.
Okay. Now, you also spoke about speaking with Ms. Hill as well. Do you recall asking her the nature of the relationship that she had with the victim? Was it a loving relationship? Was it a violent relationship?
I believe I asked her something to that sort, and I don't recall what her response was.
Okay. And do you see Ms. Hill in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you point it out for me, please?
Light-skinned female with dreads, sitting to right of your position, wearing a blue jumpsuit with a white undershirt.
Okay, very well. Your Honor, at this time, we ask that the record reflects that the witness identified the defendant.
All right, record will so reflect. Anything else, Mr. Gazzola?
Yes, Your Honor, just a couple. Investigator Allen, you mentioned that it was a totality of the circumstances that led you to your belief that this was a homicide. And I know you've probably said all of those things at some point, but just kind of to collect them all in one place, could you walk us through what aspects of this made it a homicide and not a suicide?
First, it would be if there was a battery where Mr. Tony did get into a physical altercation with Ms. Hill. That the amount of alcohol that I believe the uncle said that they purchased that evening was a larger amount than what they typically do. Ms. Hill stated that they both had been drinking and they were both sitting down to eat. She stated that she began to question something about their relationship and which caused Tony to hit her. She then says that she fell off the bed and next thing you know, she heard the pop. She then goes upstairs and
so I'm very sorry to interrupt you. I don't know if you were getting to it, but my specific question is what facts that were at the scene indicate that this was a homicide, not a suicide. Okay. I do appreciate the summary, but I'm just trying to be a little more focused on this.
So I think the question was asked the totality of it would have been the testimony of Ms. Hill, the location of the body, the location of the shell casing, and the circumstances that was leading up to why a gun was discharged in the first place, which would have been the relationship issues.
Okay, so one by one with each of those, you said testimony of Ms. Hill and the determining factor between homicide and suicide based on her testimony is what? It's the fact, what about her testimony specifically indicates that this was a homicide, not a suicide?
The fact that she stated that it would have been more so on her testimony based on her stating that the victim was sitting on the bed, shot himself, which if that would have been the case, the evidence would reflect him, having, some blood on the bed, the shell casing would have been on the bed or whatever the case may be. But she stated that he was on the bed. The location of her recollection of where he was different than what he actually was. So I asked questions about that. So as far as the investigation was determining it from being a suicide, from being a self-inflicted gunshot wound would be, the witness testimony, the evidence collected, if there was video footage or if there was an independent party that witnessed the altercation.
Okay, and just to confirm, there was no witness or video footage, correct? Okay. So then you said the position, so her testimony essentially kind of blends into position of the body.
Correct.
Okay. And then so we have position of the body, you said position of the shell casing, and then tell me a little bit more about the blood splatter. Where exactly was the blood found? You said was no blood found on the bed at all?
I don't believe there is any blood found on the bed. I believe it's on that wall partition. And I said it a couple of times during this, that the wall partition is, if you're leaving the room, the wall partition would have been the stairs going back up to the top of the house. That wall partition is where blood was located.
Okay. And were any bullet fragments found or the exited bullet?
I don't know.
Okay. And to your knowledge, I know you mentioned that it was a head wound, obviously. Do you know where the entry wound and if there was an exit wound, where the exit wound was?
I don't recall.
Okay. All right, nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Wilson?
Not further.
All right. Thank you, Detective. Stay safe out there. All right, argument.
Your Honor, it would be our position that the evidence provided does not rise even to the low standard of probable cause. We heard the direct testimony today, essentially differentiating between what could be a homicide and what could be a suicide. And again, I'm sure the state will correct me if I'm misinterpreting this. My understanding is that the determination here is mostly based on the position of the body, where the shell casing was found, where the blood splatter was found, and how that is potentially inconsistent with the fact that the defendant told the police that he was initially on the bed. It's our position, Your Honor, that that is not that's not sufficient. It would where a bullet shoots out of a gun and where it enters a body depends entirely on where it's being pointed. And if it's being pointed towards away from the bed, even if the person's sitting on the bed, then blood splatter and anything else will be away from the bed, Your Honor. So it is our position that there hasn't been enough to show beyond that, that this was a homicide and not a suicide, which is consistently what the defendant told everybody she's been around. We heard that the potential witnesses, the family members, may have already had some preconceived notions about their relationship, Your Honor, but we would argue that that is not, again, inconsistent with what with the position of the defense.
Okay. Mr. Wilson.
So, Your Honor, the detective was clear, we think, in his testimony in pointing out how he arrived at the conclusion that this was not a self-inflicted wound. In doing that, Your Honor, we believe that the detective was clear in pointing out all of the inconsistencies of the defendant's statements that surround whether or not this was a self-inflicted wound. The detective was clear in showing that those were inconsistencies based on the other evidence that was found at the scene as well, Your Honor. The position, how far the body was from the bed, the position of the body where the shell casings were found. Now, the detective was asked repeatedly on cross, Your Honor, how did he arrive at that decision? He did not say that what the family said played any part in how he came to that decision. He stated what their positions was, but that's not what he used to make the determination that that was not a self-inflicted wound. So based on the detective's testimony, Your Honor, the state is asking that this court find that there is probable cause and bound this over.
All right. I'll find probable cause on murder, aggravated assault, and possession of a knife or firearm during the commission of a felony. Let's hear, I may want to add a couple conditions to the bond. What address is she going to be living at? What's her mom's address? Is it in Fulton County? I know it says live with parents. I think.
Yes, Your Honor, and she's actually here right now. It's 458 Cologne Drive.
All right, and it's in Fulton.
But Your Honor, I do just want to add it is of course your prerogative that we are not requesting a bond hearing at this time.
Okay, I just want to add some conditions and
This defendant doesn't have any criminal history to report at this time.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Cazzoli.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Hill is 47 years old. She's a lifelong Atlanta resident. Her whole family lives in Atlanta. Her mother is here today. And I'm sorry, and then this is, who is this next to you? Your sister. Okay, nice to meet you, ma'am. So they're here in support of her as well. She has the good address I mentioned, Your Honor, and she's been living there for the last 20 years. She's a high school graduate, class of 1994 from Cities High School. She was working at Burger King before her incarceration in Union City. She'd been working there for the last 2 years as a cashier. Your Honor, as Madam Pretrial mentioned, this is her very first arrest. If the court is inclined to hear a request to lower bond, I will request such a lowering, but if the court is not inclined, we can continue.
Okay, what says the state?
Yes, Your Honor. So, Your Honor, as stated, I think Your Honor said she must have had a good lawyer at this bond hearing.
Because it looks good.
The state wasn't aware, at least we weren't aware of if there was a bond hearing. So we would ask, based on the fact that she has that $100,000 good bond for the murder charge, the state is asking on the aggravated assault that this court impose a $30,000 bond for that and a $30,000 bond for the possession of firearm.
Just to clarify, it's a $100,000 bond total.
Yeah, it's
Or
100.
Oh, it was total. Oh, I thought it was for the murder.
Yeah, it's 75, 15, and 10.
Court's indulgence a moment, Your Honor.
Sure. Mr. Casoli, did you do that hearing?
I did, Your Honor, yes.
Which one? Thank you, Your Honor. I think the state was asking, so I guess I misinterpreted or misunderstood. It was 100,000.
Total, it's 75 on murder, 15 on ag assault, and 10 on the firearm. Judge Newkirk signed it on May 23rd.
Now, if I'm correct, I think Your Honor can't address the murder charge bond.
Right. But I'm going to add some of my conditions, so I have to make an adjustment to one of the other two.
Okay, well, we'll agree to the court's discretion as to.
Okay, so it's no drugs unless prescribed, no alcohol, no weapons. You're going to have an ankle monitor paid for by the county with a 24-hour curfew, court, lawyer, medical, employment. Does she have children?
No.
Okay, basic life necessities. I mean, your mom looks really young, but in the event you have to help your mom, that's fine. Basic life necessities. And so if you go anywhere to help your mom out or work, but you have to supply the name of your employer, place of employment, proof of employment schedule, and the exact location you're going to be working. You have to let Mr. Casoli know and the ankle monitoring company, of course. And then you're still, according to Judge Newkirk, you have to live with your parents. Also, no further contact with any of the victim's family, professional, personal, close associates by phone, email, text, through a third party, including their workplace, church, home, daycare. If you encounter the victim's family, you have to leave immediately and not come within 200 yards of them. That ankle monitor will be paid for by the county. Let's see what else I put on here. Stay away from 6273 Longino Drive. Not sure if anyone else lives there. So the murder will stay at 75. Ag assault will increase that to 30 and then 10. 75, 30, and 10. Best of luck to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have nothing further, Your Honor. May I be excused?
Thank you. Yes, have a good day. Thank you, Detective. Thank you. My heart goes out to both sides of the family. Y'all all take care.
Take care of myself. Thank you, Your Honor. I believe that concludes all our business.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cazzoli. Thank you, Ms. Gandy. See y'all back at 1.